What's going on, everyone? I am here to do a review for I Know What You Did Last Summer. Honestly, this was not a movie that was on my radar of films for 2025, and I watched this on strict impulse and slight curiosity to see if my expectations being set were were wrong. Truth be told, they weren't set low enough. I first learned last year that they were making a reboot of this franchise and barely cracked a smile of excitement when I heard about it because something told me that this was not going to be a strong reboot, at least not for me. Unlike the Scream franchise and reboot of that in 2023, the reboot of I Know What You Did Last Summer fell flat for me. I Know What You Did Last Summer takes place 28 years after the first film and 27 years after its sequel, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. That follows 5 individuals enjoying life in summer ahead of what is supposed to be an upcoming wedding for 2 of the members of the group. When after the engagement party, they decide to go for a ride along the coastline when all of a sudden their nice and momentous occasion turns into a nightmare when they encounter a driver riding along and swerves off the road thanks to one of the people in the crew doing something absolutely dumb, causing them to run off the road and crash into the rocks and water below. Fast forward to a year later, one of the members received a card during her engagement party. Yes, she got engaged to a whole new man, with no name on the envelope and a card that reads, I Know What You Did Last Summer. At this point, the crew was about to turn into the Scooby-Doo gang in order to find out who sent that card and handle the situation to the best of their abilities, and their best is mid at best. It basically follows the same guidelines as the original film but doesn't execute it nearly as raw and suspenseful as the original. As far as the new characters go, they were forgettable and borderline annoying, especially this character named Danica. I was so ready for her to get off the screen every time she came on the screen. I don't know if it was her character or her acting that irked the hell out of me the most, or maybe it was a combination of both. I think she was supposed to be the Helen Shivers character who was portrayed by Sarah Michelle Gellar in the first film, but at least Sarah was worth watching all the way to the end of her storyline. Another character that annoyed me was Teddy, and I'm thinking he was supposed to be the Ryan Phillippe of the group who portrayed Barry in the original film, and he too annoyed the hell out of me. Some of the stuff they had him do came off very cartoonish and not fit for whatever tone this movie was supposed to be, but since this movie was goofy to me, I guess it fit. I guess. The only saving grace for this movie, and I'm saying that lightly, was the return of Jennifer Love Hewitt and Freddie Prinze Jr. as Julie and Ray. Seeing them on screen together again was a delight, seeing as how I believe this is the first time they've been on screen together since the second film, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. Now let me talk about the main part, the killer. The fisherman killer looked and appeared more menacing this time around, even down to the sound the feet made when he took footsteps, but it also came across like Jason Voorhees type of deal, which kind of threw me off. One major issue I had with how they did the fisherman killer in this movie is having them pop up out of nowhere like he was supernatural, almost like he was teleporting. It didn't come off as believable at all. I guess this was the director's attempt at giving us a jump scare, but it didn't work, at least not for or on me. Another thing that was unreal to me was how some of the characters got out of situations that they were in which they clearly and definitely should have died. It's almost like they were trying to preserve them as much as possible, but for what reason, I have no clue. One thing I will give points to is that all of my guesses on who the killer could be while watching the movie were wrong. There were some nostalgic points in the movie that were mentioned that reminded you of the original film, such as mentioning certain locations, showing imagery from the original film, and even a cameo from the original one. Which, by the way, while it was nice to throw that cameo in the movie, how they did it was very weird. I thought I was watching I Know What You Did Last Summer, not A Nightmare on Elm Street. Should you watch this movie, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. And speaking of cameos, there is a post mid-credit scene that happens and it lasts for about 2 minutes. I will say that I believe they are setting another part based on that cameo, but even with that, I'm still skeptical. The ending of this film stretched out longer than it needed to, and while unexpected, it left me wondering why they went this route to begin with. Was there another direction they could have headed, or was this the only ending that they could think of? All in all, I'm all for reboots if they are done right. Scream is a perfect example of how to reboot a series that has been on ice for years and bring new life into it. Hell, it spawned a 6th and soon to be 7th part. The 6th part ended so well, in fact, to me, I wouldn't be mad if they ended the series right there, but you know how it goes. If it makes money, why stop? This movie, on the other hand, was a reboot done wrong, in my honest opinion. I would not recommend this movie to anyone, especially if you are a fan of the original two. And to think, all these years ago, the sequel got a lot of flack. If they think that, if they didn't like this one, they are sure as hell going to hate this one and probably revert back and say, you know what, I still know it wasn't that bad. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.